as we noted here last night, STEM school Highlands Ranch is just a few miles from Columbine High School, the scene of one of the worst school massacres in U.S. history.
A deadly school shooting in a Denver suburb. An 18-year-old student was killed. 8 others were injured at this
tragedy in Colorado, where 2 teenage gunmen turned another American school into a terrible, terrible scene.
Guns are the solution, not the problem.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Gave you FBI statistics that violent crime and gun crime is down over 20%.
Let me just ask you
and
this.
You want to go to little factoids.
No.
I mean, I think the first thing that has to be done is obviously security at these schools needs to be radically escalated.
The war breaks down the fine lines of our Second Amendment. People are wishing to banish the guns that brought our country to its feet. Throughout history, an association named the NRA has kept this battle going by fighting to protect the Second Amendment and the rights it gives us. People all over the world wish to be united, but with two sides clashing, they are breaking the very glue that saves us from madness over our contradicting political views. The NRA is the National Rifle Association, a non-profit organization that focuses on protecting the Second Amendment right. Wayne LaPierre, the president of the NRA, wishes to add more security in schools to prevent school shootings, such as an increase in armed security guards, which provides a much safer environment. And to do this, there has to be an increase in guns. As Wayne LaPierre stated in one of his speeches, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And what he means by this is that if there are more good people with guns, then the bad people will become afraid, and there would likely become a decrease in gun-related crimes. A public debater that works for the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, covers almost all debates, and has stated in his debate from Fox News that as the number of guns went up in the United States, the murder rate has gone down per capita. It only means that as the number of guns went up, the crime rate has gone down, but also that by removing guns, the crime rates would increase. Guns keep us in line by the fear of being shot and by doing the right thing in our society today.
Ben Shapiro is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, syndicated columnist, and the host of the wildly successful Ben Shapiro Show. It's a podcast. Hey, Ben, let's start by talking a little bit about what happened down in Florida last week with Parkland, that high school there. This time, the debate seems different, and it seems like people in Washington on both sides of the aisle are trying to make sure that school violence, you know, they can do something about it. They haven't been able to get a handle on it so far. What's your suggestion?
I mean, I think the first thing that has to be done is obviously security at these schools needs to be radically escalated. When I was in high school, I went to a Jewish day school out in Los Angeles, and a mass shooter named Alex Vierra actually drove past our school and saw there was armed security outside. He wanted to target a Jewish center, and he proceeded to drive right past it. He saw that he didn't want to go where there was armed security. He went over to the JCC instead in the East Valley here and shot up the JCC. Armed security does make a difference, and having lots of security guards at these schools would be a welcome thing. I think students should have their IDs checked when they walk onto campus. We should be guarding our children like we guard our banks. I mean, these are our most valuable asset. And the idea that anybody would oppose this on any ground seems to me unreasonable.
Nowadays, the laws for guns are too strict, being an estimate of 270 to 300 guns in each state. A gun law like magazine restriction is outrageous, with showing no decrease in crime rate around the country from 1994. Crime rate has increased in gun-free zones by 98%, according to the Daily Wire. This not only tells us that gun-free zones are way too vulnerable to crimes, but they're not at all protected. Research done by the Crime Prevention Research Center, held by President John Lott Jr., noted, in October 2015, only 2 mass shootings in the U.S. since 1950 have occurred in an area where citizens were not prohibited from carrying a gun.
KTBC Television News now presents a special program on today's mass murder in the capital city. Here is KTBC Television News Editor Neil Spells.
Good evening. One of history's worst mass murders occurred here in Austin today. By official count tonight, 49 persons were hit by gunfire. There are 16 dead and 33 injured. It started last night when a man reportedly killed his wife and his mother. That same man apparently rounded up an arsenal and supplies this morning and then went to the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower. It was then that terror rained down from the tower.
From 1950 to 2016, there was no decrease in crime rate in the U.S., as per capita the ratio of guns to Americans was below 1 gun per American. Ammunition, such as hollow point, was banned because when the shot reaches its target, the metal expands inside of the target and the bullet gets stuck, which could lead to lead poisoning if it were to be left inside someone. A study done by NPR.org said that in a gun-related incident, about 41% of stray bullet victims were in their homes, often indoors and sometimes even asleep in bed. With the ban of hollow point ammunition, people like the 41% of bystanders or innocents will keep going.
Emma Gonzalez is a young adult that spoke in front of an anti-gun rally in Fort Lauderdale after her school was brutally shot up in 2018 and 17 of her peers were killed. This is her talking about more gun laws on guns.
I know this looks like a lot, but these are my AP Gov notes. Haven't already had a moment of silence in the House of Representatives, so I would like to have another one. Every single person up here today, all these people should be at home grieving. But instead, we are up here, standing together, because if all our government and president can do is send thoughts and prayers, then it's time for victims to be the change that we need to see. And since they added the Second Amendment to the Constitution, our guns have developed at a rate that leaves me dizzy. The guns have changed and the laws have not. We certainly do not understand why it should be harder to make plans with friends on weekends than it is to buy an automatic or semi-automatic weapon. In Florida, to buy a gun, you do not need a permit, you do not need a gun license, and once you buy it, you do not need to register it. You do not need a permit to carry a concealed rifle or shotgun. You can buy as many guns as you want at one time. I read something very powerful to me today. It was from the point of view of a teacher, and I quote, "When adults tell me I have the right to own a gun, all I can hear is, my right to own a gun outweighs your student's right to live. All I can hear is mine, 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 mine."
Do you think more background checks and longer wait times should be added to getting guns?
I don't know if you could actually have more background checks. I think they should probably have different avenues that they track a gun. If longer wait times allow that, then maybe, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that guns should be removed, or should laws be harder to obtain a gun, and why?
I don't believe guns should be removed. I'm not one myself to have a gun, but if I felt the need, I would like to know that I could obtain one. I mean, there's hunting, there's all kinds of good things that one does use guns for, but and I also feel that regardless of whether guns are available, they would still be able to obtain them for bad things.
And what is your standpoint on guns, as in handguns?
Well, obviously, I still feel that one should be able to have one. It's unfortunate that probably where our controversies lie are more in ethics. I don't know if there's ever a way they could ever gauge how one thinks. That would be really hard. Or what one would do in an emergency situation. Maybe there should be more training.